Hey, I'm just a skater boy, and last week was probably the first time ever, I don't even remember the last time that would have happened, where by the end of the weekend, I felt good. I felt accomplished. I felt like I did everything that I wanted to do in WoW. And even though there were more things I could have done, I just didn't really feel like it. I was good. So let's start off with Mythic Plus, because when the season started, I just did 2 sevens, got my rating to 539, but this week I did every dungeon timed except for Prior. I did that at an untimed 5, and I was able to get my rating up to 2006, so I got my Keystone Master already, which is the fastest that I've ever done that. Outside of that Priory, I timed a 5 Floodgate, and then I timed 7s and everything else. And overall still, I don't really think there's any one dungeon that really sticks out as a giant pain in the butt. Priory was definitely difficult. I know I tried a 9 and just got absolutely blasted, and I was doing low damage, so I don't know how much of that was skill versus just a bad group. But so far, this season's dungeon pool is not as grating as last season. There's nothing really that makes me kind of not want to do it, like there was Mist to Turn a Scythe last season. But so far, nothing. Like Theater of Pain was one that I thought I was going to hate, but to be honest, it's not that bad. Motherlode is one that I totally forgot how tight that timer was, and by the time we were on our way to the last boss, I realized, oh yeah, this is like the last dungeon that I needed for 10 or 15, I forget what it was, back in BFA to get the achievement, and it took so long to get that, so I am not looking forward to running that, but still overall, it wasn't a bad dungeon. It was kind of quick and fun, I guess. Rookery was a dungeon that I was actually surprised to see so many failed groups with that. I ran that, I think, 4 times, and the first time I didn't time it was just because of the authentication issues happening on the server, which otherwise I probably would have. And then after that, it was a combination of the last boss just being a little bit more difficult, I guess, than people thought, but also in one group, the tank was just pulling a little bit slower than he should have, so we ended up missing the timer by like a couple minutes. So that dungeon, along with Motherlode, could be a sneaky contender for tight timers, but I don't know, maybe it's just the groups I was running with on that one. But then also just with the affix that you have to deal with this season, I actually really like it a lot. I'm finding that I have to remind the people in my group that we actually want to soak that orb, because I feel a lot of people are running away from people or they don't know that it needs to be soaked. So just reminding people before we start, so that way we're getting that buff. So it's a pretty easy mechanic to deal with. And one of the things that I find kind of fun is trying to position my character in a way that it will rotate into somebody who's standing still in case someone just does not want to soak my orb. I think making it so that I can force my party to do the mechanic, whether they know they're doing it or not, is a awesome feature. Instead of having to constantly rely on myself to do it or just another person who knows the mechanic, this one's, like I said, really fun and easy to deal with, so I like this affix a lot. My goal was to try to get at least 5s and everything, because the first part of the week, getting into 7s was just difficult, whereas getting into 5s was much easier, so I ended up focusing on that, and then slowly but surely, once I got more 5 keys, I was able to get into more 7s. So this week I'll try to finish off the last 2 dungeons I have, time those at a 7, and then I'll see how 8s feel. I'll see if I can jump into another 9 and see how that goes, and see if it's similar to how that Priory went, because I might just be too undergeared for that at the moment, but we'll see. And then outside of Mythic Plus, I was once again doing the raid on Heroic. On Monday night, my guild was progressing on Mugsy, Heroic, and I stayed another hour and a half after the raid finished to continue progressing on it. We didn't get it then, but we ended up getting it on, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday night. And honestly, that's such a fun fight. I liked it a lot, and it really scratched that progression raider itch that I've been missing. Learning the fight with each pull and getting closer and closer to death, and then slowly starting to perfect the fight and getting to a point where I knew exactly what mechanic was happening and when, how to handle it, what abilities to use when, and all that. It was just so fun figuring that fight out and really kind of perfecting it, like I said. And this entire raid, I've actually been having insane rolls, like in the 90s for almost everything. But the worst part is that I'm a friends and family member of the guild, so if a main raider needs it, they're just going to get it off of me. Which makes sense, I'm not complaining about that, but like, god does it suck getting best in slots twice off of Armed Bandit and not being able to keep it. And of course, because we were on Mugsy, that means we had cleared One Armed Bandit before this. I think that fight is still one that I would consider to be fun, it's just a little bit more frustrating than I initially thought it would be. Specifically with that coin rolling mechanic, that is kind of very annoying because sometimes I'll be right by the coin and then not get the debuff / buff, which I don't know why they do that. Why is a debuff a buff? Like, you just make it a buff. It would be nice if like the coin had a circle around it so you could see the area that you have to stand in to actually get it. But overall, still a fun fight. It's something that's very cool and very unique. I love the way that you can, like I think I said last week, you can pick how you fight that boss or what mechanics you deal with. That's really cool. And actually, speaking of the raid as well, the world first kill on Galliwex happened on Saturday night, and it was the first time that I ever actually watched the boss go down live. That was very exciting, and I loved the way that there was no dungeon journal for this fight. For the longest time, I've been wanting WoW to have more of that, where there's just unknowns for the fights, and you're not watching a video, you're not going through the dungeon journal, you're just going and doing the fights and experiencing it for the first time and learning as you go. But again, congrats to Liquid, back-to-backs, and I'm very excited to see what they do in the next tier to see if they can sweep the whole expansion. I think that the first half of this raid was definitely leaning more towards Echo, and then eventually Liquid just picked it up and just kept slamming each boss and obviously getting that world first, despite like the 3-hour power delay, or outage I should say. I guess they had some door issues or something like that and the server authentication issues. They just struggled with a lot and still got it first, so that was awesome. On Wednesday last week, I was streaming here and to Twitch, and the VOD is up for that on this channel if you want to see that. I did my 5 Mists of Pandaria time walking dungeons, and then I did some delves, which I did a lot of this week. It's probably the most delves I've done since a long time. I really like that I'm now getting gear that is not just jewelry from delves. It's been such a nice change, and there's been a few pieces I think that I was able to replace with delve gear, which is fantastic. I managed to do a tier 10 delve, which I took slow, and it was a bit rough in parts, but overall it was completely doable. I think I could do an 11 as well, but I'll probably just wait until later on this week, once I get a little bit more gear maybe. This week, once again, I should be streaming on Wednesday at around 12 o'clock Pacific, so if you wanted to come check that out, come hang out, I'd love to see you. With all the hashtag content that I did last week, my warrior was actually able to jump up 7 item levels. I had a bunch of upgrade options in my vaults. Pretty much everything that was there was a stat upgrade. I had 2 heroic tier pieces available to me, which were early contenders for my pick, but there was also a 2-handed axe that immediately caught my eye in the 3rd row. I ended up simming everything, and that 2-hander simmed above everything else, so I ended up taking that. But in retrospect, I wish I had given it more thought, because the 2-hander is an upgrade for what I had, but both of those tier pieces were best in slot. So I ended up taking the immediate upgrade instead of thinking more long-term, so that's unfortunate. Lesson learned, I'll just do better next time. In addition to that, I got some pretty good gear from the raid in Mythic Plus this week. I got some Warbound tier hands, which once I catalyzed my heroic headpiece, I got my 2-piece. And then I had a bunch of Warbound gear in my Warbank, so I went through a bunch of my alts and just put that on them. For some characters, I was replacing like 427 gear with 620s. So I won't go through all the item levels and stuff like that, but there were upgrades there. Unfortunately, my priest that I want to main as my healer this season is still at like 570 with all those upgrades, so quite a ways to go to get him kind of into that mythic range. My prop pally I think is just over 600 now, so he probably can start doing maybe mythic zeros. So I'll eventually start seeing what that looks like, maybe do some more world content, jump into LFR if I can, and get some more gear. Moving into the mounts of the week, I was able to get 2 new ones, starting of course with the Crimson Shredder Tank, which is the KSM 2000 rating in Mythic Plus mount. This is a really cool mount. I love the way it looks, I love the red on it, and I love the way it looks when it flies. In addition to that, I got this personalized Goblin Scrapper, which you get for 333 cans from the shoveling thing. You buy like a bag from a vendor, and then there's a chance it will drop. I got this on the very first bag I got, so I don't know if I was extremely lucky or if this is very common. But this is kind of a cool looking mount. Happy to have had that done. There's a few more of these, some of them a lot more difficult to farm, so slowly make my way through all of those. For achievements, I was able to get 140 more points, so I'm ending the week at 44,610. I started by getting the Undermine Breaknecking Gold achievement, which is to finish the Undermine car thing races. Once I swapped out, I think it was the Turbo, I was able to get that no problem. Jumped on my Hunter this week and got the Tour of Duty Undermine achievement, which is just to get 1,000 honor in Undermine. Once again, just like last season, I was just getting the war crates that were dropping every like 20 or so minutes in Undermine. And then continuing to pick away at pet battle stuff, I was able to get the Family Battler of Dragon Isles and Zaralek Caverns, which is again just to do the pet battle achievements with all like beast, all critters and stuff like that. Zaralek Caverns in particular had some pretty frustrating fights, and I was getting pretty cheesed, but that's over, and I'm very happy about that. And then lastly, I was able to get an awfully big adventure, which is just to defeat many pet masters with an Elec plushie on your team. I've just been missing the Celestial Tournament guys for the last month or so just waiting for each week to rotate in, and finally got that. But that is it for me. That's all the things that I wanted to talk about. I had a fantastic week, and I really enjoyed my time playing. I'm excited to do more of that this week. Let me know what's going on in your world, though. What did you do in-game? Did you do any Mythic Plus? What did you think of the dungeons? How are you progressing in Liberation of Undermine, and what do you think of that? Anything and everything, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Let me know. If you're looking for something fun to watch, you can check out my video where I rank all of the different box art in WoW. That video's on screen now, so click it if you're interested. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll talk at you next week. Have a fantastic week. I love you.